So thank you for joining. This meeting is going to look at our new relationships education curriculum for years reception, year 1 and year 2. And we will be answering any questions at the end of the presentation, but if you do have any questions that you wanted to post in the chat as we go along, I would also do my best to answer them at the end. So I'm Miss Samuels, I teach in year 6, I'm the Senko, I'm Deputy Safeguarding Lead, and I lead PSHE and RSE across the school. You have also got Mrs. Ray, the Associate Head, in the meeting too. She just gave you a little wave there. So let's go through the aims of this meeting. There we go. So we're going to be talking about relationships education, and we wanted to create a parent partnership with you. So what we will be doing is sharing some information. We would love to have your feedback on this, and I'll provide an email address at the end of this presentation of where you can share your thoughts and any questions. We wanted to explain to you changes from the government that have come in regards to relationships education. We wanted you as parents and carers to understand why relationships and sex education is important. We also want to share with you how it will be taught at school. And I'll also be sharing some resources with you so you'll now see what your children will be learning at school too. So at the start of this year, the government made updates to the relationships education curriculum that we have to teach at school. And as a school, we now have a duty to teach children about families and people who care for them, caring friendships, respectful relationships, online relationships, and being safe. Now, when this came into the news and the press, there was then a lot of false information that was shared. And I just wanted to kind of clarify some myths with you. So there was lots of talk about the fact that us as teachers could promote our own views, and that's absolutely not correct. As teachers, there's clear legal guidelines for what is taught and what we are allowed to teach children. We follow our school policy, but we do answer questions honestly using factual information. And all teachers at Forest Academy have recently had training on the new curriculum from Croydon Council. There was also talks about the fact that we'll teach children to have a certain sexual orientation. Absolutely not. Our curriculum is focused around respect, and we do look at differences between race, gender, disability, faith, and family background, as well as sexuality, but it's all done in a respectful environment. There was also talks about that children will be encouraged to have sexual activity. Again, absolutely not. At primary school, children are taught that some parts of their body are private, how to seek help if someone makes them feel worried or scared, how their bodies will change as they grow older, and then later in their primary school life, the basics about periods and where babies come from. So I just wanted to eradicate some of those worries that you may have had. Now, at Forest Academy, we believe that our relationships and sex education curriculum should provide children with the knowledge and skills to enable them to make informed and responsible choices later in life, and also to encourage them to have a healthy lifestyle. We believe that it should contribute to their spiritual, moral, cultural, mental, and physical development. And again, it all comes back to preparing them for secondary school and adulthood. We want all of our sessions to enable children to ask questions and for them to feel confident to do so, and for that to be done in an environment of trust and respect. So that's kind of the why between our relationships and sex education at school. Now, how do we teach RSE at school? So relationships and sex education comes under the subject of PSHE, which stands for Personal Social Health Education. So your child, whether they're in reception all the way up to year 6, has one PSHE lesson a week. Some aspects of relationship and sex education comes under the science curriculum as well. So this covers, these bullet points here cover what's taught from September all the way through to July. So for all children, whether in reception or year 6, in autumn 1, everyone covers the topic being me and my world. And what's good about that is that we revisit that topic every year, building on the year's previous knowledge. In autumn 2, we all look at celebrating differences, including anti-bullying. In spring 1, we discuss dreams and goals. In spring 2 is healthy me, looking at making healthy lifestyle choices. In summer 1, we look at relationships, And then in summer 2, this is where the relationships and sex education part comes in. We look at changing me, so changes to our bodies as we get older. Every session, every PSHE session, children start with their ground rules, and these are agreed between the class and their teacher at the start of the year. These are really important because we can be discussing quite sometimes tricky topics or new learning, and we want all of the children to be able to learn, to feel safe and to be respected. So you can ask your children about this when we come back in the summer term, because this will be referred to at the start of every PSHE lesson. How will your children learn? Well, every PSHE lesson is planned for and taught in just the same way it would be for an English, maths, science, geography lesson. We still think about what we want the children to learn and how we want them to do it. Every session, the child will be given factual information that will not interfere with home values or faith. And we want them to build their social skills and their collaboration skills, as there's lots of opportunity for talk during our lessons. So how will we work together with you as parents? So just to say again, I know I've said this a few times now, but the sessions are based on facts and information, so that you are prepared to have conversations with your child. At the start of every half term, the curriculum newsletter for your child will contain information about the PSHE that they will be learning that half term. Also, what vocabulary they will be learning. That way, you're prepared to have conversations maybe before the learning takes place or after the learning takes place. We want you to be prepared for that, so there's not a surprise coming your way, and we want you to be fully aware of what your child will be learning. We want to promote respect. I mean, it's key in this topic. So we want you to be able to have respectful conversations, and for us to have respectful conversations about these topics at school. Now, this bit will talk about what you as a parent can withdraw your child from if you wish to. Now, as I've said already, some parts of the relationships and sex education comes under science, and I'll show you this on the next slide. As a parent, you do not have the right to withdraw your child from the science lessons. However, if you wish to, you can withdraw your child from the relationships and sex education lessons. But I'm hoping that once you've seen the resources that your child will be using, it'll make you feel a bit more comfortable. If that is a decision that you wish to make, you would be invited in for a conversation with Mrs. Oldfield or Mrs. Ray, and hopefully from that conversation we can ease any worries that you may have. What I will say here, and from past experience, is that I think it's much better for your child to take part in the lessons, they're given correct factual information, rather than after the learning's taken place, they have a conversation with their friend on the playground and they might be given some misinformation. So I think it's much better for your child to be there in that lesson, because they do all talk about it on the playground after, and if they're in the lesson, they will be given the factual information. So what you will see here is what comes under the science curriculum and what comes under the RSE curriculum. So remember, the science curriculum you cannot withdraw your child from. So in reception, they'll be making observations of animals and plants and explaining why some things occur and talk about change. And it kind of overlaps with the RSE curriculum, where they'll be starting to label some of the body parts. They'll learn about respecting their body and changes that happen to their body. Year 1 and Year 2, children will be identifying and drawing and labelling the basic parts of the human body, and they'll have the introduction to the process of reproduction and growth in animals. Don't be alarmed by that bit. I'm going to show you what that means shortly on the slides. But this does overlap with their RSE curriculum, where they will be learning the correct scientific names for different body parts, such as penis, testicles, anals, vagina, which does come up in their science curriculum as well. So there is that overlap of where they are learning the correct scientific names for different parts of the body. What I will share with you now is the resources that are used in reception, Year 1 and Year 2. So in reception, some of the questions they'll be asked and answering are, can you name different parts of the body? And there's the labels that they will be using there. They'll be talking about what each part of the body does and why it is important. So at reception level, these are the body parts that they are identifying and labeling. They'll be thinking about what they need to do to keep their body healthy and happy, and there'll be some picture cards there for them to organise and discuss. So this is the element of making healthy choices. As we move into year one, they'll be thinking about life cycles and how much they've changed since they were a baby, how their abilities have changed, how long it takes to grow up, and thinking about whether they all grow at the same rate. And they'll be learning that through song for year one. They'll also move on to naming and learning the scientific names for different parts of the body. So they'll be thinking about how they can tell the difference between a male and a female. How can you tell who's a boy and who's a girl? And what are the right names for the body parts that make boys and girls different? And this is an example of the resources that will be shared with them and the pictures and labelling that your children will be seeing in the RSE lesson. Year one will also think about how they've changed since they were a baby. So what can they do now that they couldn't do before? And that covers the relationship education for year one. In year two, they'll build on their knowledge by thinking about how their faces and body change as they become older, and what else might change for older people. So thinking about those life cycles from being a baby onwards. They'll recap the names of the body parts, but they'll build on their knowledge by thinking about, are girls and boys' body parts different? What clothes do we wear? And which clothes cover our body parts? So that comes down to respecting each other's bodies. So these are some of the resources that will be shared in year two. They'll also be thinking kind of like about consent and touch. So what sort of touch do you like? How does it make you feel? What sort of touch do you not like? And how does that make you feel? So thinking about, which body parts can we show and all those sorts of things, keeping certain parts private. And that will be what's covered in year two. If you did want any further information from this or to look at the government guidance in greater detail, there is a link there and the presentation will be shared on the website if you did want to access any more information. This is what's coming up next for us. So we would love to have your feedback. We will do a question and answer session very shortly. But if you do think of any more questions after this session, then please do send them in to admin@forestacademy.org.uk. We will be having follow-up coffee afternoons, and the one for Key Stage 1 is on Thursday, the 6th of May between 2 and 2:30. So if you feel that there's been something that's not been covered in this meeting or you wanted further information about a certain area, please do let us know, and then we can add that into our presentation on the 6th of May, because we want it to be guided by you. What information do you want? So please do let us know, and then we can add that into the follow-up coffee morning. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And I didn't know if anyone had any questions that they wanted to ask. I'll just check the chat, or there's anything you weren't sure about or you needed any further clarification on anything. I'm more than happy to try and answer your questions now. You wanted to raise your hand. I'm just scanning around. No. If you do think of anything later on, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you at any time. So please do get in contact, and we can talk about this in further detail. Hopefully I feel that that's maybe eased any worries, or you feel better equipped to have these conversations with your children later. I'll also be on the gate this afternoon, so please do come over and have a chat. No one's raised their hand, but thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I really do appreciate it. Have a fantastic Easter holidays, and I'll see you very shortly. Bye, everyone.